this party started.
He's shining a light in the dark corners of our media.
You are fake news.
Our government.
Handling of classified documents.
And our culture.
Don't trust anyone.
It's common sense amid its chaos.
Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
Here's your host, Ike Wingate.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the show. Happy 2026. Happy New Year, as they say. What is the cutoff for Happy New Year? Some say mid-January. I tend to, at least in the first week, we're still there. And so Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season, wonderful Christmas, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, etc. Maybe a little change up from the norm that allowed you to sort of reset, recalibrate, rejuvenate. That's another R word we can say, recreate, and be ready for 2026. I'm glad you are with us today. A lot happened over the Christmas break. Obviously, the big one was Nicolas Maduro. You know, when we're talking about Latin American names, we have to roll the R's, even though, you know, we're English-speaking Americans. It's just pretty ridiculous. So Maduro was captured along with his wife in an operation called Absolute Resolve. Absolute Resolve. And plenty of critics are out there saying, we shouldn't have done this. This is regime change. This is a declaration of war, etc. It's all about oil. Here we go again with the Earl. Who said anything about Earl? You cooking? Yeah, that's from a Chappelle skit. Anyway, it's much more than that, and it had to happen. And I will tell you why coming up, as well as the surprise that no one was surprised by. Tim Walz dropping out of the governor's race in Minnesota. He's a two-term governor. Apparently, they don't have term limits. At least you could at least run for 3. He was going to run, and he is now out. And people are saying, that's not enough. We need you to resign as governor now, as this fraud debacle continues to unravel layer after layer after layer. I've said it many times. I don't see how this guy keeps his job when this happened under his watch. And for those that are involved and at least have a good understanding of how these government reimbursements work in various aspects of these programs, they go through audit after audit after audit. So for them to continue to get funding, it's almost as if somebody looked the other way intentionally. Had some conversations offline over the break with those that are involved in this kind of thing with government reimbursements, federal money through the various states. They all have strenuous audits in these states. And for the state of Minnesota, I mean, they had to be audited and show some kind of proof. And so for them to continue to get this fraud money, it's very likely that those involved at the higher levels, I'm not saying Tim Walz specifically, although I do suspect it, but I can't say for sure, had to just look the other way. And when you look at Ilhan Omar's district being a big part of the fraud, and the fact that her net worth has gone from, less than $100,000 to, 20 million, something like that, maybe more. Some even say up to 60. I can't remember her exact net worth, but maybe somebody can let me know in the chat. But it makes you wonder, how did she get so rich? Well, when you see all this government money being funded into situations where fraud is happening, it starts to sort of come together as the possibility. I can't say for sure, but it sure looks suspicious. At the very least, she should explain how her net worth has gotten so high so fast, and her salary in the Congress is $175,000 a year. I'm not saying that's a bad living. It's not enough to amass millions and millions and millions in net worth change in just a matter of a couple years. It's not possible mathematically, even if you're trading Nancy Pelosi's stocks. So my suspicion here is this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be a lot more that will come out. Tim Walz would not resign if there weren't mountains of evidence of incompetence and maybe even complicity. But we will see. So we'll talk about that. And even though I just talked about it a lot, California is now under investigation for fraud. We're hearing that there's a lot more fraud in California. And so that is being looked into now, as announced by the president. Mark Kelly's in trouble, continues to double down. And the Pentagon has said, well, we are looking into this really seriously. And VP Vance had a trans attack on his home. Today's the 5th anniversary of January 6th. And the Hilton Hotel has denied stay to ICE employees. That's not going well. Bongino is back in the private sector, coming in hot. We've recorded record liquid natural gas exports in the United States in 2025. And the vax schedule for children has been greatly reduced. Of course, also over the Christmas break, you had Nick Shirley uncover massive amounts of fraud at these daycare centers in Minnesota. What's interesting is, it's not like it's a bunch of new information per se, but it's the visuals to go along with it, as if, wait, if this were a daycare, wouldn't there be kids there? And why is the sign misspelled? We talked a little bit about that on the last show. If you missed it, go back to my Rumble channel, rumble.com/the Ike Wingate show, if you're sort of feeling lost. But that was obviously a big deal. And that's a big factor, I have to say, in what led to the dropout of the race for governor in 2026 for Tim Walz. It's got to be related, right? All right, I want to say thank you to Bree and David Sling for reposting the live broadcast on Rumble. Please do the same thing. Hit the thumbs up on the live as well. If you're watching on X, please heart the post and repost. Of course, we want to say hello and welcome to our friends watching on the Right Side Broadcast Network. You can follow me on X. My name is Ike Wingate, and that is my handle on X. It's posted there on the bottom of the screen. It says follow at Ike Wingate. So please do that. Of course, whatever other platform you're watching on, you can give us a thumbs up. And if you want to help us cover the cost to bring you this broadcast, you can do so by contributing via Cash App or Venmo at IkeReport.com, IkeReport.com, $5, $10, $20. It's there posted for you, easy to contribute. And also all of our socials are on there as well. And lastly, before we get to it, please drop your comments in the chat. We want to see what you're saying out there. We want to hear from you. And that is a big part of what makes this show enjoyable, at least for me. At least for me. What's interesting when you talk about Maduro is how many people are coming to the defense of this dictator. David Sling gets it right. We went from no kings to release the dictator, with pirate daycares learning the kids in between. Yeah, or leering, if you will, if you go by the sign, the leering center. Now, that is what's so ironic about this, is the defense of Maduro. Now, you don't necessarily have to like that we went in and took this guy. I understand, like, there's going to be a lot of even MAGA that says, oh no, not another endless war, not another foreign entanglement. I understand that knee-jerk response. I mean, when I heard of the capture of Maduro on Saturday, I first was very impressed, as in, how did they do this? And kind of shocked, as in, you kind of knew it would happen, but usually it's a lot of talk that doesn't result in action. So it sort of conditions you to think it's just all a game. But then the next thing I thought is, now what? What now? Because I don't really want to be in a long-term foreign entanglement, long-term regime change, if you will. I don't want to, just from history. But let me tell you this. I would rather be, if we're going to be in a regime change, even though we're technically not right now, but let's say we are, okay? Because the goal right now is to stabilize things, because you've got a lot of forces there that if you held an election right now, the infrastructure's not there and the place is in chaos. It needs to settle for a little bit. But the idea is to get it settled, stabilize it from a security standpoint and then move to elections. Now, the VP that's in charge now, this gal, I mean, she was part of the old regime. There's several other people in the regime, and that's one of the left's critiques is why didn't you get them all, even though the precision, excellence, and just outright elitism that was shown in this capture was just incredible. I mean, straight out of a Hollywood movie. But that's their criticism. Why didn't you get them all, right? Please. You get the head of the snake, but certainly there's other corruption there that has to be rooted out. But back to my point, and that is, if there is going to be regime change or foreign interventionism, I mean, here's what I'm just going to tell you what I think. I would rather it happen in a country in our hemisphere that actually directly affects our security than I would anywhere else. These foreign entanglements off on the other side of the world that have very little direct effect on the United States, I'm not interested in those. To me, if there is ever a justification to do it, it's in a situation where it directly affects the security of your own country. And not to mention, they are close enough to do something to us if they collaborated with some of these foreign entities like China and Russia and Iran to set up some kind of nuclear weapon or something like that to then deploy it from Venezuela. Likelihood of that low, but possibility is certainly there. And so if we're going to take these kind of escalated actions, shouldn't they be against a country who can directly pose a threat to our country? I mean, to me, that makes a lot of sense, actually. We're not doing it to say we're the police of the world. No, actually, though, we are the dominator and superpower of our hemisphere. And if there's a threat out there, it needs to be taken out. To me, that would be the time to do it. That would be the situation that it would be justified. Now, people say, well, wait a minute. You can't just do that. That's an act of war. Okay. If you're going to tell me this was illegal, you've got to go talk to some legal scholars, because at best, as far as in a critique of this, it's a gray area. But the precedent has been there again and again and again in the past. You look at a situation like Noriega, and we didn't have to put a bunch of troops on the ground for a long period of time to get this guy. Just went and plucked him out clean, as clean as it gets. No casualties, no American soldiers hurt. And by the way, he had a federal warrant. And oh, by the way, there was a $25 million bounty on his head from the Biden administration. Remember that? It's been up to $50 million under Trump. But this was a guy who Democrats advocated needed to go away. And now that Trump did it, it's, oh my gosh. Okay, so we have that precedent set. And then if you're going to, complain about this and act like it's horrible, why don't you ask the people of Venezuela? Okay, call up your friends in Venezuela, and they will tell you under Maduro and prior under Chavez how they wrecked the country. They nationalized the oil and gutted it. And you got people living in poverty, eating animals, man. And I'm not talking about the tasty ones. I'm talking about the ones that taste like chicken, but they aren't. You have desperation. You have control. You have a dictatorship. And you have a few people that are getting fat. The people in power. So go ask the people of Venezuela what they think, because they are loving it. They're loving it. And you ask people in, from Venezuela that are in the U.S. or have family in Venezuela or some sort of personal connection, and they say this is incredible. Even Ana Navarro, or whatever the heck her name is, on The View said this was this is a huge victory, even though, she wanted to say, well, even if you don't agree with the way Trump did it, it's still something great that Maduro is out. Basically, they're saying, we are mad that Trump got the victory, but he did the right thing. Now, people in Venezuela, you might say, well, wait a minute, where's all the video from people in Venezuela celebrating? Well, allegedly, there was some right after it happened, but there are gangs going around there wreaking havoc right now. So you're not seeing a whole lot of celebrating because people are getting punished. People are getting targeted right now. And that's what needs to get under control. But the people that have lived in Venezuela, migrated, or have connections personally there are saying this is absolutely amazing. They're so appreciative that someone finally had the guts to do something about this. And by the way, Maduro had warning after warning after warning after warning. I mean, he could have left peacefully. He could have lived in Turkey. He had plenty of options, and he continued to thumb his nose at the Trump administration, to mock and mimic and dance like Trump, and to dare the United States to do something. Tried to call the bluff. He messed around and found out. He had plenty of chances. He didn't think they would do it. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, my friends. That's just the tip of the iceberg. But let's get some visuals. No, let me stay with this train of thought for your sake. This is more than oil. And by the way, Exxon and ConocoPhillips went into Venezuela in the 90s and set up all of this oil infrastructure. Okay? And the deal was they were going to work together, and they did for a while. And then Venezuela, under Chavez, started changing the deal on them. They started changing the deal. And so you had, let me see if I can find. Let's see, where is my, they started to, I know where I put it. Expropriate. Okay, expropriate is the word, I believe. And seize these assets, these oil assets that belong to Exxon and ConocoPhillips. They went in there and they set all of this up. Chevron was there, BP, etc. But then in 2007, this is when it all changed. Chavez started this push for greater state control of the oil industry. Venezuela forced foreign companies, they changed the rules on them, to migrate these heavy oil projects to the Orinoco Belt, to joint ventures where Venezuela now nationalized their oil. They made 60% at least. Okay, some companies agreed to it. Exxon, ConocoPhillips, they refused. And they actually, ConocoPhillips got over $8 billion in international arbitration. Exxon was awarded $1.6 billion, but they're still waiting to get it. And so they changed it all. And then, basically they ran their country into the ground because they nationalized the oil. They changed the deal on these people. They neglected the equipment, and it's a freaking mess now. They're not able to do near as much exporting of what they were able to do at one time. And so they went to this sort of socialist system. They started controlling the grocery prices and all the things that you might hear Kamala Harris say. And inflation went bonkers, and they ruined the oil industry, and they ruined the country. And in the middle of that, they increased the control over the people. And then back a couple years ago, 2022, there was an election. You remember that? Maduro said he won. By the way, Smartmatic and some of these voting machines, they're operated out of Venezuela. I mean, the story is just so freaking deep with corruption. But what's interesting is when you look at the election results that night, it's bizarre because I don't remember the opponent to Maduro was winning most of the time. And then in the middle of the night, a huge spike for Maduro, and Maduro carried the victory. It looks exactly. You can go compare the index over time results from the 2020 election here in the United States to the 2022 election with Maduro and see if you can find some differences, because it looks eerily similar with the way it happened. Guess what? Our country under Joe Biden did not recognize Maduro as the rightful victor of that election because election fraud occurred. I don't know why they were so eager to defend it in 2020 when the exact same thing happened here, but I digress. Okay, so you have that stuff going on. And some people say, well, Maduro was taken because he's going to turn state's witness and he's going to roll on all the voter machine. I mean, anything's possible. Do I think that's the reason all this happened? No, because there isn't really one standalone reason for doing this. There are so many reasons for doing it. Because Venezuela is working directly with China and Iran and Russia. They're using the oil as part of this too. Okay? They are colluding with Russia to export sanctioned oil, right? And they're sending this oil. China buys a lot of its oil. So does Iran. So does China and Iran buy a lot of their oil from Russia, from Venezuela. So by taking out Venezuela, you are greatly limiting China, Iran, and Russia, because Russia's working along with them. This puts great pressure on Russia. They're not as strong as they thought they were. So again, this has implications in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. It has implications in China trying to accelerate the AI race against us. This has implications in China being aggressive with Taiwan. If they don't have the oil and resources to carry out some of these things, they're greatly limited. And of course, Iran and all the threats that they are to global security, this limits them as well. So you see what I'm saying? And not only that, you have these terror networks from Iran, some with China and Russia operating there too. In fact, they work to, with Russia for military training there in Venezuela. And so you have this country not too far off of our coast that is colluding with all of these enemies of ours while terrorizing their people and, funneling our country with drugs. And Maduro wasn't just a president. He was an illegitimate president, if that. But he was running this country like a cartel. He was the head of our cartel. And that's what he was. And federal drug charges, federal weapons charges are what he's been brought up on in this warrant and this indictment. But the other thing is, these countries, these BRICS nations countries, are trying to get the rest of the world to move away from the petrodollar. So they're trying to weaken our currency at the same time. So basically, we have this nest of enemies, this beehive, if you will, that we're allowing to just fester and grow and get more and more powerful. And the aim of these bees inside this nest is to weaken and take down the United States of America. And we're just going to sit here and do nothing? They had chance after chance after chance, warning after warning after warning, and again, continuing to flood our country with these illegal drugs that are killing our people while also flooding our country in the past with gang members, Tren de Aragua. And some of the worst people in their country, they just dumped them in our country. They did this. They're trying to destroy the United States, and they're working with this axis of evil, as George W. would say, to do it. And so we've given them warning after warning after warning. What else is there to do? I mean, we've got a lot of problems in Latin America. China has their hooks all over Latin America. Panama and the Panama Canal is another one of those places. All throughout that region, you've got the Belt and Road Initiative as well. Brazil and other, I mean, there is a ton. There are many potential threats that are in the not early stages, but not the in the middle stages, I would argue, that are happening inside of South America, Latin America, and China plays the long game. And so for the longest time, we've underestimated China, what China is trying to do. I mean, what they've been doing in the Panama Canal is a huge threat, not only from a security standpoint, but just an economic standpoint. And so we've gotten a hold on that. Trump has made that a priority. He hasn't occupied that area or anything like that. We got to take these threats seriously because they are in proximity to our country. And I'm sorry, if you are going to be a threat to our country, I have no problem with you calling it a regime change or occupied or colonizing. I don't care what you call it, but I'm sorry. This is the way the world works. I don't want to go in and occupy someone's country. I don't want to go in and say, we're taking over. I don't want to do any of that. But if you are actively operating an operation to diminish, threaten, weaken, and destroy our country, game on. Because if you sit around and do nothing, you're dead. You're toast. You're done. People say, that's all. Venezuela can't do that. Think about all the people they're working with, my friends. This isn't like something going on in the Middle East. This is happening in our hemisphere where proximity is much closer. It must be taken seriously. And if you want to think that it's just about the oil, then you are greatly misinformed. I just named off a dozen different reasons, all working together to diminish this country. And by the way, a nice fringe benefit is setting the people of Venezuela free. Now, it's not going to happen overnight. It's messy. It's not ideal. I get it. I wouldn't, start the day and say, this is what I want to do. But when you've tried every other mechanism to solve it, to no avail, unfortunately, you have to turn the knob up to 11. It's not ideal. I mean, otherwise you sit on your hands and you allow this beehive to grow, and it's going to start stinging people. And so if you're apprehensive about that, okay, I understand from the past. But when you see all the implications, I don't know what other option there was. And by the way, a fringe benefit of this is these people have been liberated. Now, not totally yet, but it's a process. But to me, taking out a dictator, I mean, you don't just go around taking out dictators, even though it's a terrible living condition. But when they are a threat to your country and you've given them warning after warning after warning, and they are in a position to do harm, and by the way, they're doing harm while funneling drugs into our country, and I get it, Mexico's doing the same thing too, they all have to be dealt with in stages. This one reached the find out stage. And it was a flawless, precise operation, very impressive. You can hate Trump, but you have to respect our military and the job that they did in the middle of the night. Here's some images from that. People say, oh, we bombed Venezuela. No, we didn't. We took out anti-aircraft weaponry with this strike. So, by the way, which came, that anti-aircraft weaponry came from Russia. And so we took that out first to neutralize the threat to our forces in the air. Okay. So that's number one. Okay. And then we, then people landed, right? And the snatch and grab occurred, the snatch and grab, if you will. And basically, when these missiles started firing down on the anti-aircraft weaponry, Maduro and his wife, I guess, who had just been out on a date night that evening, so basically giving our our military 100% confidence of where this guy was. But anyway, they tried to run to the safe room. They tried to run to their safe room. Apparently, they hit their heads. They actually got injured during this whole exchange. And they weren't able to make it, though. They tried, but they weren't able to make it to the safe room, and they were apprehended. And they were in and out with this operation in 15 minutes. I mean, just incredible. And then, then Maduro's perp walked in New York City. And in that briefing, he confirmed that he had been injured, Nicolas Maduro and his wife. His wife was apprehended because she is the mastermind, apparently, behind a lot of this operation. And, it's probably pretty obvious he never thought this would happen. And again, you have all these people saying on the left that were calling for Maduro's removal just a few years ago. They're all saying how terrible this is, again, because Trump did it. At least John Fetterman is making sense.
So Senator Chris Murphy, your Democratic colleague, called the operation wildly illegal. America doesn't want this war. Nobody asked for this. And I think the most important conversation to have is Venezuela is not a security threat to the United States. They're not threatening to invade us. Do you want to take this on?
I respect my friend in Connecticut, but we have different views on this and perhaps other views as well. I just said this on my social media that, remind everybody that America is a force of good, order, and democracy, and we are promoting these kinds of values. We are the good guys. Let's pretend that now we are acting in a way. Now, remember, we all Democrats years ago wanted to eliminate him, and why have a bounty of $25 million if we didn't want him gone? Why would you do these things if you weren't willing to actually do something other than harsh language?
Great question. Why else would you want to, why would you have a problem with this? Unless it was just about political theater, right? Christian says Trump is doing what no other president would. Thank God we didn't get Kamala. James says, great job, President Trump. Keep up the great work. All right. And so David Sling says Venezuela is going to boom. Thank you for the comments coming in the chat. So, the big award that was out there just a few years ago, we saved $50 million, basically. We saved $50 million because we did it. Nobody else brought him in. We did. Our country did. Our armed forces did. Okay? So Maduro goes to trial, by the way, or goes to his first hearing and, says, I'm still the president. And he says he was kidnapped and blah, 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 blah. But this is perfectly legal. There's precedent for it. And it's just amazing how pinpoint, flawless, strategic, and surgical it was. Extremely impressive. And if, in case you forget the way Maduro operated, this is 2019. There were opposition protesters, people protesting Maduro back in 2019. Guess what happened? He had his military just flat out run them over. This is the guy you're defending out there. If you are defending Maduro, look at it. They just ran him over. If you're going to protest, if you're going to have any point of view, if you're going to have any free thinking opportunities, we are going to snuff it out. We're going to kill you and deter anybody else from thinking for 1 second that they should have an opinion and voice that opinion through peaceful protest. So again, that is who the left is defending. A murderous dictator and drug dealer. He's a drug kingpin. That's basically what he is. Okay, so what do people think about it out there? What does support for this operation look like? And for that, we turn to CNN.
Ousting Maduro. Pre-ousting, what you saw was the clear plurality of Americans opposed at 47%, just 21% support. Come over to this side of the screen. After the ousting, look at that. The support through the roof. Now we're talking about 37%, well within the margin of error right here of the opposition, 38%. It turns out Americans like what they deem to be successful foreign policy operations. And in this case, they view the ousting of Maduro, at least up to this point, as a successful one, and therefore the support way up.
Yeah, before underwater, now basically even. What about the idea of putting Maduro on trial here in the United States?
Yeah, part of the reason why I think that the success number is way up, and you saw it here, what was it? It was 26 points in favor of opposition, and now within the margin of error, is because they simply don't like Nicolas Maduro. And in fact, they believe that he should be on trial for drug trafficking. Look at this, 50% of Americans favor compared to just 14% who oppose. So there are very few Americans here who oppose it. Even among Democrats, the opposition number is below, get this, just 24%, is below 25%. So this is something that unites Republicans. It divides Democrats. And at this particular point, support for the operation way up. And in terms of those who favor the drug trafficking trial for Maduro, that is a clear plurality.
Yeah, it doesn't really even divide Democrats on the idea of a trial. They all seem to support it by and large. Only 24% oppose it for Democrats.
Okay, so Democrats are in favor of Maduro going to trial. And when we look at the numbers for apprehending him prior to the ousting of Maduro, 21% supported it, 47% oppose it. Now 37% support it, 38% oppose. Pretty much a split, depending on what this polling sample looks like. Now, it just shows you. I don't know that it's only 38 to 38 or 40 to 40 or whatever it is, and the other 20% of people don't have an opinion. I don't know. But the point is, the support for it now has grown. It's almost doubled. And then you even have Democrat support for this trial. The point I'm seeing here is that this is largely something that most Americans agree had to happen. You don't have to like exactly how it happened. You may have preferred, that this guy was lured with a carrot out onto a boat and then brought over to the U.S. You may prefer that the guy surrendered voluntarily. I understand all that, but most people are good with the end result when it comes to polling and looking at it that way, because of the fact that a lot of us know someone that has died from an overdose. A lot of us know someone who has been affected, or ourselves have been affected directly by addiction. Now, that's not to say that Maduro is responsible for everyone getting addicted to drugs, but one of the ways to mitigate a lot of these things is to stop the flow. Stop the flow. A lot of cocaine coming in from Venezuela, some fentanyl as well. And these substances are harming our country. And again, you got the gangs, you got all the other things that are going on. I mean, you have an entire stack of reasons that Venezuela has been an enemy. Yet we've tried to play nice. We've tried to play nice, and they have continued to escalate and ignore, all at the detriment to our country. And so, whether you like it or not, it has happened. It has happened. Maduro will stand trial. It'll probably take a year. I mean, this guy could have left the country peacefully, and now he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail, more than likely. Think about all the people this guy killed, all the people's lives he ruined. He might pretend like he's a happy-go-lucky guy up there singing and dancing when he's on stage, but that is not who he is. That is not who he is. And again, he had so many chances. When I look at the totality, the entirety of this entire situation and how terrible Venezuela is in its current state, I'm just surprised it didn't happen sooner. It should have happened years ago. Who knows what kind of damage has been done, but it is certainly important that we rectify the corruption, rectify the destruction that has happened there, and make sure that it does not continue into the future. Okay? Okay. Again, the drugs by themselves are just one aspect. I mean, this is like a bicycle wheel with a lot of spokes. And so it has to be, we got to flatten the whole tire. You know what I'm saying? Flatten the whole tire. All right. If you like this broadcast, please help us out in the algorithm. Give us a heart on X, heart the post and repost. If you are watching on Rumble, please give us a thumbs up and repost the live. And if you are watching on whatever other platform you're watching on, give us a thumbs up. Make sure you're following me as well on whatever platform you're watching this show on. But also make sure you're following me on X. We're trying to build the following on X, and that is at Ike Wingate. That is my handle, Ike Wingate on X. Go and follow me there. Okay. Now, if you want to support what we're doing, help us cover our costs, Cash App or Venmo at IkeReport.com, Cash App or Venmo at IkeReport.com. For those of you that have been following the show for a few years, we've been working to grow this audience and to grow opportunity and to grow into the next step. We are working on that. We've been working on it for a while. We got a big victory last summer with Newsmax, and we will have some news, hopefully, on the next step soon. Can't go into it yet, but we are working on it. So keep watching this show for what is going to be next for this show. Okay? That's all I can say. So, all right, let's take a quick break. How about that? And we want to come back and talk about Tim Walz. Tim No Balls Walz. Tim A. Walz. There's so many different nicknames for this guy. So we're going to talk about that coming up next. Take a quick break. Right back.
Oh, hey. Didn't see you there. Well, just hanging out on the farm here. One thing I was thinking about this morning is, when's the next crisis going to hit? It's not really a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And we really can't rely on the government to take care of a shortage or something like that. We just got to take care of ourselves. You remember back in COVID, you tried to go to the store and everything was gone? Well, you can't risk that kind of thing. That's why I suggest My Patriot Supply. You can go to preparewithike.com and get your 4-week emergency food kit. Save $50 when you use my URL. Again, it is preparewithike.com. It's not a matter of if. It's just a matter of when. And the question is, when it does happen, will your family eat? Make sure there's no question about it. Take action now. Save $50, 4-week emergency food kit. Preparewithike.com. Fourscore and 7 years ago, there used to be men in this country. Now this country's full of a bunch of weenie men. You think about all the stuff that's in the water, plastics, microplastics, there's estrogen everywhere. In fact, compared to 100 years ago, men have half the testosterone that they used to. Look, it's not like getting shot in the back of the head. All you need to do is take chalk once every day, and you can boost your testosterone for fun things that require your energy, like working out or playing sports or actually spending time with your kids. I wish I could do that, but I can't because I'm dead. But if I were alive, I would take chalk. The Patriots said chalk combine the most powerful herbal extracts, so it's all natural, giving you that lift that you need. George, come spot me.
Well, Abe, if I too were alive, I'd gladly spot you.
It's time to boost your testosterone to levels not seen since 1776 or 1860 or 1864, whatever. But it's herbal. It's natural. It's made in the USA. It's been clinically studied to boost testosterone. We're talking about chalk. Okay? Stop being all weird with this trends and everything else. We didn't have that back in my day. We had real men. It's time to get boosted back to those levels when men were men and women were women and there wasn't anything in between. Right, Mary?
Yes, Lincoln.
That's right. Get chalk. IkeWingate.com. Get chalk. If you want to be like me, get chalk. Except for the dead part. Okay. IkeWingate.com.
Hey there! Tired of watching your subscription costs climb higher and higher? With Q Broadcast, you get more for less. All your favorite channels and content bundled into one unbeatable package. No contracts, no hidden fees, just simple, affordable streaming. Say goodbye to overpriced services and hello to a new era of entertainment. This is streaming the way it should be. Q Broadcast, this changes everything.
You can sign up for Q Streaming today at IkeWingate.com. Just click Get Q Streaming to start streaming tons of channels, video on demand, even pay-per-view, all for the same price. It's all included. This is a Christian conservative-owned company that does not hate your values. Stop giving money to the cabal of big tech. Support companies that support your values. Right now at IkeWingate.com, just click Get Q Streaming.
Big tech tries to censor him, but he won't back down. Now back to the Ike Wingate Show.
All right, welcome back to the Ike Wingate Show. Glad you are here again. Happy New Year. If you're just joining us, help us out by following the show at Ike Wingate on X or hitting the thumbs up on this live and reposting it to all your friends. Heart the post and repost on X. We've got a few reposts on Rumble. I see one repost on X from David Sling. Thank you. If you repost, I will say your name. If you contribute to the show, I will announce your name as well. And you can do that at IkeReport.com. You can use Cash App or Venmo. And again, those links are at IkeReport.com. Hope you guys had a wonderful Christmas, New Year's, etc., holiday season, and the like. And back at it. It's kind of hard to get back in the swing of things fully. But at the same time, it's like, let's go. It's time. I mean, think about this year is shaping up to be, already crazy news. And then this is the midterms. And so it is going to be a busy year. And then Trump hasn't even been in office one full year. And look at all that he has accomplished. It really makes other presidents look bad as far as getting things done. Another big piece of news is Tim Walz is out as far as running for governor in 2026. Let me see here. What is the deadline? I think I looked this up somewhere over here. Yeah, the deadline to file as a candidate for the 2026 Minnesota gubernatorial election is June 2nd. Man, they wait a long time. So the filing opens in May, closes in June, as per Minnesota law. Okay. So I was trying to figure out, has he actually started a campaign? Who else is running? We know MyPillow, Mike Lindell, owner and founder, is running as a Republican. Who else will be running? We hear Amy Klobuchar is going to run. Instead, Tim Walz officially announced. I mean, this dude, some people say, he was almost our vice president. Well, I don't know that he was almost our vice president, but I get why people say that. As I've stated before, Tim Walz is just a walking liability. He was a walking liability even for the Kamala campaign. I mean, it's like she wanted to pick a candidate that was dumber than her to be her running mate, because he was certainly a liability with all his dishonesty and stolen valor. But he was a horrible debater when it came to going up against VP Vance. They never recovered in the polling after that VP debate, thanks in large part to Tim Walz. And now he's officially announced he's not going to seek re-election. The statement reads in part, "As I reflected on this moment with my family and my team over the holidays, I came to the conclusion that I'm gay." No, wait, that's not what he said. "I came to the conclusion that I can't give a political campaign my all." End of quote. Yeah, he was hanging out with the family, doing jazz hands, and finally said, "You know what? I don't think I can do this." Continuing on with the quote here, "Every minute I spend defending my own political interests would be a minute I can't spend with men. No, defending the people of Minnesota against the criminals who prey on our generosity and the cynics who prey on our differences. I've decided to step out of the race and let others worry about the election while I focus on the work." Okay. So that's an interesting way to frame it. He did this press conference, then did not answer any questions. This made a lot of people in the media upset, because if you're going to hold this big press conference to make an announcement, you could have made the announcement on X with a tweet. Instead, he decided to hold this big press conference and do no press.
Political news out of Minnesota. Governor Tim Walz, who of course was the Democratic nominee for vice president in 2024, has ended his re-election bid for governor. He is not going to run for re-election. This comes as pressure has been growing around this widening welfare fraud scandal. Now, Walz has not been accused of any wrongdoing, but it has been a growing political headache. Let's get right to CNN Chief National Affairs Correspondent Jeff Zeleny. This is a wow this morning, or at least would have been if you had said it was going to happen, 2 or 3 months ago?
That's right, John. Good morning. Even perhaps 2 or 3 weeks ago, the reality is Minnesota Governor Tim Walz had been insistent on running for a third term, which would have been unprecedented in and of itself. Minnesota has not elected a governor for 3 consecutive terms, but it is that deepening federal probe, as well as this widening scandal. As you said, he is not implicated in this at all. This is actually somewhat old news in Minnesota. This has been going on for years and years. The prosecution started back during the Biden administration, but over the holidays, it certainly did widen. There was a right-wing influencer who posted a viral video on social media that quite literally went viral when the vice president of the United States and the FBI director leaned in on this, and it shined a brighter spotlight on really what had been some deep concerns among Minnesota Democrats, even about the wisdom of Governor Walz seeking a third term. They believe that this would hang over the entire re-election effort and perhaps even damage the Democratic Party, even though there is no suggestion that there was wrongdoing. However, this widening scandal happened on his watch, but we are getting his reasoning in a new statement this morning that's ahead of a news conference he's scheduled to hold in just a few hours. And let's take a look at one small portion of this, if we can, John. The governor writes this.
All right. So I've already told you that. It's interesting. You can hear the entire slant of CNN during this, a right-wing podcaster or whatever they said about Nick Shirley. Basically, shining light on something that everyone already knew about. And it's pretty unprecedented for a Minnesota governor to be elected for 3 terms anyway. So, basically diminishing this entire thing. But look, let me tell you, there's no way Tim Walz is dropping out of the race unless there is something concrete against him. I don't think he does it. I think he just powers on through. Says, well, that doesn't matter. Think about this. It had to be so bad, and Tim Walz didn't make this freaking decision. Don't for 1 second believe that. This decision was made for him by way of people in the support circle. Amy Klobuchar, who knows? Whoever is inside the Democrat machine in Minnesota and beyond said, dude, you're toast. We're not going to support you. You're a liability. Now, he went from sort of, being in Minnesota and being able to wreck the place without a whole lot of repercussions. Then he got in the VP race and was a political liability to Kamala Harris. Now he's a political liability to any Democrat in and around the state of Minnesota because of what went on under his watch. But while the fever pitch and the attention on this is super hot right now, look, June is a long way away. That's the deadline. The filing period starts in May. He really didn't have to make a decision until like March or April, right? Unless the pressure was so tremendous on him, and unless he knew there's a lot more that's going to come out, and unless there's potentially something implicating him directly in this mess, because there was nothing saying he had to resign right now. This was doing great damage to the point where he said, I have no choice because they're basically, everyone's abandoned me because I suck at being a leader so much. That's what happened. That's what happened. He didn't just come to this conclusion, believe me. And so that leads me to question, okay, what is next? What else is coming? Because I just don't believe for a minute that this is the end of it. Because then he would convince people, all of it is out. There's no real reason to continue worrying about Trump, worrying about the right, the Nazis, however his voice is. There's no reason to continue worrying about that. We've weathered the storm. No, I don't think you have, because if you had, you wouldn't have dropped out right now. That's the direction he would have taken it. We have time. It's blowing over. We're good. Just wait. No. There's more coming, and people are so fed up with this dude, and it's like, you got to get out now or you're going to take the whole thing down with you, which to me says there's a lot more coming. I don't see any other scenario where it makes sense for him to drop out of the race. Now, there's a lot of people calling for his resignation now. So it'll be interesting if the guy even keeps his job from now, to November and, into, I guess January or whenever they would install, maybe January 1, their new governor. But Nick Shirley's viral video on this fraud at these learning centers or these Head Starts or these daycares in Minnesota ended Tim Walz. And Nick Shirley tweeted that out earlier today. I ended Tim Walz. Okay. So again, based on the filing deadlines, if the filing deadline was next week, I would get why you would resign or, drop out of the race now. Again, he's still governor, but he's decided not to run a re-election campaign. If the filing period were next week, I would understand him doing that now. But it's months away. Again, he has until June 2nd. So to me, there's got to be more to it. Now, the fraud and the far-reaching effects of it is going beyond Minnesota. And it's in Ohio. We've talked about that a little bit last week. But HHS has confirmed Somalia's UN ambassador was involved in healthcare and a healthcare company that was convicted of Medicaid fraud. It's in Cincinnati. That's where this guy's place of business was. His company's NPI appears on the HHS Officer of Inspector General exclusion list, meaning conviction of program-related crimes with a mandatory minimum 5-year exclusion. Pardon me. So because he's on this exclusion list, this code 1128A1, it means that there were crimes. Same guy here, this UN ambassador for Somalia, assumed the rotating presidency of the UN Security Council until January 1st. He now has authority to set the global agenda, oversee international peacekeeping operations, and authorize UN military actions. And he was a supervisor at the Medicaid office in Franklin County, Ohio. Those are his credentials. He was also listed as a daycare administrator. Really weird. Another daycare connected to a healthcare company which was convicted of defrauding American taxpayers as well. Medicaid and daycares. Somali networks. And he didn't just cash out or declare bankruptcy and leave town. He became a diplomat with immunity presiding over global security. How is this possible? I mean, this has been confirmed by HHS. Speculation that Ambassador Abukar Dahir Osman, permanent representative of Somalia to the UN and president of the Security Council, is in fact associated with Progressive Healthcare Services, a home health agency in Cincinnati, in which HHS previously took action against in response to a conviction for Medicaid fraud. Again, what is with these Somalians and so many of them being involved in fraud? They're not the only ones committing fraud. I'm not saying that. But why are such a high percentage of them Somalians? It's really pretty bizarre. So we continue to see this fraud ring, these fraud networks, if you will, unravel all over the country, and it's just getting started. And California seems to be one of the biggest problem areas. President Trump announced his administration has launched a fraud investigation into the state of California. Trump says under Gavin Newsom, California is more corrupt than Minnesota, if that's even possible. President Trump says the fraud investigation of California has begun. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Okay, so if you thought Minnesota was bad, get ready for California. Get ready, Gavin Newsom. And that's it. It certainly needs to happen. And, Gavin Newsom, if this kind of fraud is happening under him, he needs to also resign or back away from running for anything else. So I like this. I like where things are going. The fact that fraud is being exposed is a good thing. It's a very, very good thing, my friends. We need accountability. We need conviction. And we need jail time. That's what we need. Otherwise, why do it? Otherwise, what's the point? Otherwise, how is any hardworking American going to be motivated to say, I need to do the right thing? No, people just will say, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm just going to break the law, commit fraud, not pay my taxes because nothing ever happens to these people. It's not going to happen to me. And so why should I be out here doing the right thing? See, that's why accountability is important, because it reinforces the people that are doing the right thing, and it's a deterrent for future shenanigans. accountability is critical. It has to happen. All right. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. All right. Give us a thumbs up and a repost if you're watching on Rumble. Heart the post and repost if you are watching on X. We would greatly appreciate it. Also, keep your comments coming in the chat throughout the show today, and at times we will review them. Okay. Let's talk about Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said in this X post, recapping that 6 weeks ago, Senator Mark Kelly and 5 other members of Congress released reckless and seditious video, a seditious video that was clearly intended to undermine good order and military discipline. As a retired Navy captain who's still receiving a military pension, Captain Kelly knows he's still accountable to military justice. They don't play around with this. The military does not play around with this. Seriously. Once you're out or not active, you are expected to continue to support the military, not distract, not deride, not divide, not undermine. Especially if you're still receiving a military pension. Hegseth says the Department of War and the American people expect justice. Therefore, in response to these seditious statements from Mark Kelly and his reckless pattern of misconduct, the Department of War is taking administrative action against him. And they've initiated retirement grade determination proceedings under USC 1370F with reduction in his retired grade, resulting in a corresponding reduction in retired pay. Okay, so they're going to reduce his pay potentially. And a formal letter of censure has been issued by the Secretary of War outlining the totality of Captain Kelly's reckless misconduct. It's a necessary process step and will be placed in his military personnel file. He's been provided notice of the basis for this action and has 30 days to submit a response. And the determination process will be completed within 45 days. Okay, so they've just upped the ante on looking into, downgrading his status. Who knows where else it may go as well. You know what I'm saying? So you can't just go out there, and this whole thing was stupid anyway. We just wanted to make sure that the military knew, not to obey unlawful orders, implying that, insinuating that there were unlawful orders being, given. And it suspiciously had a lot of adjacent comment around the Venezuelan drug boats, the cartel drug boats being blown up. You don't have to tell a member of the military that they're not supposed to follow unlawful orders. They know that. That's embedded in their training. So you picked a moment to basically be Captain Obvious and tell them what they already know, Captain Kelly. So why would you do that? Unless you were insinuating, implying, and trying to hinder U.S. military operations, trying to cast doubt on these lawful operations against these drug boats, which, by the way, each and every one of them is reviewed in real time by a JAG officer, a military attorney. They are looking at each and every one of them. Overall, they've said, yes, they're legal. But just to dot the I's and cross the T's, each and every one of them, they are present for and providing clearance legally. Okay, so for them to imply that these are illegal operations is meant to do nothing more than diminish our military, diminish the leadership. That's a big no-no in the military. And Mark Kelly knows that, but he is trying to play political gymnastics right now, and it's pretty disgusting. And people say, oh, well, that's a low blow. That's petty. You got to take this stuff seriously, and you must make an example out of somebody, I think. And that happens to be Mark Kelly. All right. Vice President Vance, his home was vandalized. He was not there. This was in Ohio. William DeFore, who goes by Julia, was just arrested by the Secret Service after allegedly vandalizing J.D. Vance's Ohio home. Apparently, this is another transgender person who can't control their emotions. This is the home. He took a hammer to this thing, and thankfully, again, VP Vance was not home. This person looks completely well, though, don't they? Look into those eyes. They look totally with it. Totally with it. Right? Yeah. Not crazy at all. But again, another example of this trans violence, right? These people that cannot control themselves. David Sling says he hopes that Mark Kelly speaks out again, and basically then it's over. Right? Let's see. Okay. This is good. And when I say good, I mean an example of the derangement that's out there. I'll never watch your lying MAGA maggot Trump butt loving again. What are the so-called drugs? Where are the so-called drugs? Where are the so-called drugs? They're floating in the ocean. You see them on the video. What do you mean? You don't think there's actually drugs coming in? There's no question there. That's a fact. That has been verified. We have several of these instances in which to verify from. No one has ever seen any drugs, says me TriStar lover. I don't know if that's... Anyway, no one's ever seen any drugs, just murdering people for nothing. All the lies will come out. Well, you just keep on holding out hope for that. Meanwhile, open your eyes and ears, start reading some things, start watching some footage, and you can actually read these reports. The legal standards by which our military is having to abide is very stringent to ensure that these are, in fact, the people that we think they are. And in fact, there's a trail of surveillance of where they're coming from, what's on the boat. There's no question here. They couldn't do this with literal on-site, in the moment, legal approval were there not extensive evidence. But if you're wondering where the drugs, I mean, look out your window. There's probably some drugs. And chances are it's coming from south of our border, maybe Venezuela, maybe Mexico, but no one has ever seen any drugs. We've seen the drugs. We've seen barrels of them, and when they're blown up, they're floating all over the water. I mean, someone ought to do something about these drugs in the water. We know we have sharks that are going to be addicted. We're going to have these shark cokeheads, cocaine shark. It's going to be the next movie that's coming out. And so then we have, David Sling says he was on his way to see Paul Pelosi. Yeah, this guy with the hammer attack was very similar to the guy, David DePape or whatever, psycho dude, that went after Paul Pelosi looking for Nancy. which that was one of the very first podcasts I did 3 years ago. January marks 3 years now that 3 full years, now getting into our 4th year here. And that was the first podcast we did was on the hammer attack. Played some 911 audio. All right, today is the 5-year anniversary of January 6th. A day in which Ashley Babbitt was shot. She was unarmed. There's never been any explanation as to why or justification. The guy who shot her, Ashley Babbitt, by the way, she was the only person killed, only person murdered that day. Did you know that? That's not what the media says. She was the only person. There were a couple people that went into cardiac arrest. They were not killed. They died. They weren't killed. And so Ashley Babbitt, though, she was murdered, killed, shot. Only one. The police officers that died didn't die that day. The police officer, what was his name? Sund? No, that was the chief, I believe. Anyway, the guy that died, the police officer the next day, they listed natural causes. They tried to tell you he was beaten with a fire extinguisher. He was not. He was seen on video walking around just fine after all these things happened. Was not injured, not bleeding, nothing. And then you had 2 other police officers, Capitol police officers, that died 6 months later, both of suicide. So you tell me. But Michael Byrd, on the other hand, has apparently been running the guy who shot Ashley Babbitt. The guy who shot Ashley Babbitt, Michael Byrd, according to reporter Paul Sperry, he's been running an unaccredited daycare center with his wife, Kaleska, from their Maryland home since 2008, receiving $190 million in daycare funds. What is with all these people running daycares getting all this money? What is the deal? Same guy. This guy has a checkered past. Michael Byrd. I think there's all, let's see. This guy. Michael Byrd. So the guy had a problem with potential misconduct, some training problems, etc. I'm just trying to get the specifics for you. Firing at vehicles. He left a gun in the bathroom. I mean, there's a lot on this dude. He's done a ton of terrible things. He owes the IRS $56,000. He's filed for bankruptcy twice. He's got $190 million from the daycare. I mean, he was promoted to captain, though, by the way, after shooting Ashley Babbitt. The investigation cleared him of wrongdoing, concluding the shooting was lawful. I don't know how that's possible. Reports and allegations have highlighted aspects of his professional and personal history that some view as questionable or sketchy. He left a loaded firearm in a bathroom in February 2019 while serving as commander of the House Chambers section. He left his Glock in there in a Capitol Visitor Center restroom. He got a suspension for that. He's fired at fleeing vehicles near his home. He failed a shotgun qualification test. And he failed an FBI background check at some point. He faced a suspension related to a lost weapon, part of his broader, lengthy internal affairs record. I mean, this guy has so many screw-ups. He should have never been a Capitol Hill police officer. He owes the IRS a bunch. He's had bankruptcies and foreclosures, and somehow bought a $520,000 house in 2019. I mean, he's getting money for these daycares, then it's no wonder. Anyway, that's who shot Ashley Babbitt, Michael Byrd. Senseless, because she was unarmed. I've never seen any justification for why he even did it. I mean, for a guy who leaves his gun laying around, fires at fleeing vehicles, I mean, this guy has a pattern of bad decision making with a firearm. So, you tell me. Yeah. So, I mean, that is a little known fact about January 6th, especially for people on the left, that Ashley Babbitt was the only person killed that day. Go look it up. Do the research yourself. Let me see. Let's see here. Trying to remember this dude's name. Sicknick. Yeah. Kyle, was it Kyle Sicknick? Sicknick. Brian Sicknick. He was assaulted with pepper spray, allegedly, and collapsed that evening after returning to his office, suffered 2 strokes, and died in the hospital the next evening. So the medical examiner says it's natural causes because they were, strokes, blood clots leading to stroke. So maybe the stress of the situation caused whatever condition to come out. I mean, the same happened. Someone, had a, basically a cardiac event. 2 people did. One was drug induced, like an OD. The other, I think, was just the stress of the situation. But again, nobody died that day. Or I'm sorry, nobody was killed that day except for Ashley Babbitt. Now, I believe the 2 cardiac events did happen that day. So 2 people, other people died. They were not killed, though. And Sicknick didn't die because he was killed by, January 6th insurrectionists. Again, they spun this whole narrative into something that it was not. And then they also point to the suicides months later as people that were killed, cops that were killed. And that's just not true. They killed themselves. The question is why? What were they afraid of? What did they know? Was it just too much trauma from the event? Did they let people in? Did someone kill them and make it look like a suicide? I mean, I don't know. But it sure wasn't all these cops got murdered on January 6th. Ashley Babbitt's the only one that got murdered on January 6th, if we want to set the record straight. All right. Hilton Hotels. No room at the inn. They've launched a coordinated campaign in Minneapolis to refuse service to DHS law enforcement. Basically, this Hilton hotel in Minneapolis would not let ICE agents make reservations. When they attempted to book rooms using their government emails, Hilton hotels maliciously canceled their reservation. Now it's come out that the specific hotel was a franchise locally owned, and they've been now taken off of the Hilton network. They are no longer technically a Hilton hotel. So that's what happens when you side with the bad guys. When you side with the bad guys, this day and age, it gets found out, and people don't like that. I mean, ICE has a lot of support, even though you wouldn't know it from some of the radical people out there. They wouldn't be concealing their identities if the left wasn't trying to kill them. They've attempted to kill them at that facility in Dallas. We know that's happened. They are doxing these people, threatening their families. So no wonder they're concealing themselves. All they're trying to do is doing their job. And so now Hilton Hotels has come under scrutiny. They have distanced themselves immediately from it, trying not to get any additional blowback. We'll see what the long-term effects are. All right, Dan Bongino served almost a year as deputy FBI director. He is back. Says he's taking a couple days off, although he is tweeting a lot. I'm sure there's been a lot he's been wanting to say for a long time. And now he can because he's no longer employed by the FBI. Not sure what's going to happen. He's probably going to come back to his podcast. It looks like the radio show thing isn't happening because there's so many moving parts with the radio show in syndication, and that his next in line there looks like he took that over. Vince, whatever his name is. So maybe Bongino's just doing a podcast on Rumble or something. I don't know. I'm sure he made plenty of money, or at least his company did, while he was on the inside. His wife stayed and ran it. Apparently they were living apart that entire time, or most of the time. I mean, the dude's probably working all the time. Anyway, he's come out hot. He says the support for the Trump administration in the working world is strong. People are tired of the endless BS from the black pillar chicken little grifters. Watch their tactics, and once you see them, you'll never unsee them. So basically, he comes out hot against people like Candace Owens, right? Let's see. I'm gonna go back. Says, good to see you. I've missed you. Thanks for your interest. He says the Trump team's not kidding around. It's an otherworldly experience from the other side. Trump is determined and focused, and having been around quite a few presidents, this one broke the mold. Determined and focused. If you're complaining about what it means, you can't exist without seeing and comment. You'll need to do we do it because there's nothing, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing black pillars and anti-Trumpers want more than to create division and drama. We're about results, and we'll talk about some of it very soon. Okay? Let's see. What else did he say? I started in this movement as a candidate during the Tea Party movement. I began my political commentary career shortly thereafter. I helped build this movement, and I will not let it get hijacked by a group of black pillar, life loser, grifters, and bums. We are a movement guided by truth. The essence of conservative ideology is the preservation of eternal truths. We are not the latest thing group. We're not political cannibals. He says, I watched quietly from the inside while doing the job I was hired to do, but I'm back now, and it's time to restore balance to the force. But basically, he's looking at all these people, probably people like Candace Owens, Marjorie Taylor Greene, maybe Tucker Carlson to an extent. I don't know about Ben Shapiro. I know that Matt Gaetz commented on this and said, oh, hey, what election did you ever win? And Bongino basically said, screw you. And said that you're scum and that you are a liar, and I knew it the first time I met you. Is what he said to Gates. So, basically, he says these grifter people overload you with information, but then underwhelm you with evidence. How about that? That's a good one. Overwhelm you with information, but underwhelm you with evidence. They'll try to convince you that John Smith robbed a bank, so they'll data download on you and lose you in the chaos. They'll tell you things that might be true but aren't evidence of anything. They'll tell you John was in the bank that day, that John knew someone who worked there, that John was arrested 10 years ago for a misdemeanor. They won't tell you that the fingerprints, video, and DNA of the thief matches someone else. That is so true. Solid investigators sift through chaotic information and mine the evidence gems. Charlatans and morons do the opposite. Second, he says black pillars will rarely take on the president directly. They know they'll get destroyed by the boss and wind up in the political graveyard of egomaniacs who thought they could take the president on with BS. As a proxy fight, they try to pick off his allies, knowing many of them are limited in the ways they can fight back. Well, I'm back now. I'm not putting up with this. This BS has to stop. Everyone inside the administration I crossed paths with is busting their tails to move the needle on real change. You can do things fast. You can do things correctly. You can rarely do both in government. Even with those constraints, the administration's accomplishments are breathtaking. Bongino says, I want to be clear on this point. Intra-party movement policy disagreements are healthy and natural, but endless pessimism meant to strategically attack a movement from the inside is not about policy. It's political cannibalism. Interesting. He's probably talking about some of the critiques of Kash Patel and Pam Bondi. He says many of these grifters are hiding their real agendas from you, and that leads me to my next point, last point here from Bongino. The black pillars are infamous for telling you an administration policy or action is going to lead to the end of the world before the policy has even been given time to demonstrate results. You're seeing it now with regard to Venezuela. Will it work out? Maybe. We will all see. But maybe give it a minute before you attack from inside the tent while pretending you're an ally. Black pillars and grifters asked for this fight, not us, but I'm absolutely down to fight it. Absolutely down, he says. All right, so Bongino's coming out hot, full of piss and vinegar, as they say, and looking to throw down the gauntlet. I want to go see. Let me go see what he said about. Let's see. Hold on. Hello. All right. It's interesting how Matt Gaetz has two accounts, a former congressman account and then his regular account. Okay, hold on. So this was the response, I suppose. All right. So in response to Bongino saying that he started as a candidate for the Tea Party in this movement, Matt Gaetz responded with a reply to Grok and says, when did Dan Bongino run for office and how did he perform as a candidate? Okay. Maybe, I mean, Matt Gaetz could have done that privately to Grok. Dan Bongino ran for office 3 times as a Republican, 2012 U.S. Senate in Maryland. He won the primary, lost the general. 2014 House in Maryland, won the primary, lost the general. 2016 U.S. House in Florida, placed 3rd in the primary with 17%. And that's about when he kind of went heavy into his podcast and all that. Okay, so it's clear Matt Gaetz was saying, dude, you have lost a lot. And Florida 19, I don't know if that was Gates's district and he lost to Gaetz. I don't know. But nonetheless, Bongino didn't like that. I'm trying to get back to the original point here. He responded to Matt Gaetz's request from Grok. Maybe if I spent more time at shady parties with moneyed insiders, I would have won. I heard you'd know a bit about that. You've always been, by the way, grifting off your daddy like a suckling little doggy. When I first met you in the Panhandle, I knew you were a piece of, it's written all over that phony face of yours. So he just came out hard against him. Bongino's pissed. He's had enough of sitting on the sidelines. Matt Gaetz responded, I'm glad you remember meeting me so many years ago. I recall you gave a moving speech about your time in law enforcement. I told you I liked it. I'm deeply proud of my father. We make a great team. Are you saying having a successful father is a bad thing? Do you share that viewpoint with President Trump or Don Jr.? I share your disdain for moneyed insiders. It's why I was the only Republican in Congress who refused lobbyist and PAC donations. Why are you angry at me? Because you don't like my face? This is your big white pill message against the doomers that I have a bad face? You made a post about being a candidate for office during the Tea Party movement and twice thereafter. I didn't know that full history, so I simply asked Grok if you had won any of those elections. Apparently, you underperformed as a political candidate, but you're a world-class streamer. Cool. Take a chill pill, Dan. And he adds this link to this pharmacy, allfamilypharmacy.com/Matt. Use promo code MATT10 to save 10% for the chill pill. That was kind of funny, actually, from Matt Gaetz. It seems Bongino kind of came out really hard against him, but I don't know that Matt Gaetz was just being innocent by tweeting at Grok. You can just go straight to Grok and ask Grok, but it was like he wanted it on there. Anyway, the feud continues, my friends, between people on the right. I don't love the people on the right feuding. It's not the way Charlie Kirk would have done it, and it's certainly not the way to build strength and unity going forward. Anyway, let's see. Gonna take a break, but we are getting. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Getting a back spasm going on here. January 6th was a cluster, Bree says. Hello, Bree. So many people think it was something it wasn't, and that's the truth. It was a riot out of hand with some saboteurs. Some people did some dumb things, but most people didn't. David Sling says, can't imagine Bongino keeping his mouth shut. It must have been super hard for him to... It must have been very hard for him specifically to stay quiet, I'm sure. David Sling, they just waved the protesters in on January 6th, then they put them in prison for years. We have Mostly Penny in the chat. Hello, Mostly Penny. Okay. All right. All right. We won't take a break. We'll just keep going. We only have a few stories left. But this is a pretty cool one. Record liquid natural gas, LNG. The U.S. became the first country to export over 100 million tons of LNG in a single year. I'd say something's going right, wouldn't you? This is from Reuters. The U.S. sets U.S. sets new LNG export records in banner year marked by new capacity. Again, that's what we voted for, isn't it? So another big win, a big victory, something to be proud of for the Trump administration and for the American economy. I'm just telling you, we're into the next year. Get ready. I think by the end of this quarter, you're going to be seeing some big results. And by the end of the second quarter, you will be feeling them. They will be tangible. You will be quite aware of them. That's my prediction. That's my prediction. By the end of June. By the end of June, but probably sooner, I believe you will be feeling, very much feeling the positive momentum of more money. Because the tax breaks have kicked in, and so you have a lot of businesses and people operating in the way of understanding that their taxes have changed for the better. they're going to operate accordingly. They're going to invest. They're going to hire. They're going to do things. And that is going to be felt. It takes a ripple effect of time for it to be felt, but it is coming. It is coming, my friends. Okay. Whatever happened to Matt Gaetz? Oh, he's hosting a show on OAN, which is, I mean, nobody really hears from this dude anymore, right? Except for on social media. I don't know. I think I used to be I liked that guy a lot. I'm not saying I don't like him, but now I just don't know what to think of the dude. He seems awfully squirrely now. Okay, let's look at this. This is a big story. We can talk about this for a little bit. This is the vaccine schedule. President Trump said that, this was yesterday, proud to announce the U.S. has updated the childhood vaccination schedule. This schedule is rooted in the gold standard of science, widely agreed upon by scientists and experts all over the world. Effective today, America will no longer require 72 jabs for our beautiful, healthy children. We love our little kids. We love them. They're so little, so beautiful, and they're the future, okay? That's what we say. The children are our future, right? We're moving to a far more reasonable schedule where all children will only be recommended to receive vaccinations for 11 of the most serious and dangerous diseases. Parents can now choose to give their children all of the vaccinations if they wish, and they still will be covered by insurance. However, this updated schedule finally aligns the United States with other developed nations around the world. Congratulations to HHS Secretary Bobby Kennedy and a bunch of other names and blah, blah, blah. They all worked very hard to make this happen. Many Americans, especially the Maha moms, have been praying for these common sense reforms for many years. That's a big deal, okay? So now, your kid doesn't have to have a bazillion vaccinations before they're allowed in school and other things, right? But they're saying, okay, if you want to get and go crazy with the shots, you can. But we're going to just focus on these 11 serious and dangerous diseases. And my guess is they're not going to all happen at once. You know what I'm saying? They're going to roll it out over a period of time to greatly reduce the adverse effects that we have seen run rampant throughout the younger generation of this country. And for the critics out there that said, oh, they're anti-vaxxers. You can't take away all vaxes. Vaccines have done some good in some places. Okay. They didn't take away all vaxes. They said, yeah, for the real serious ones, let's keep them. Let's just not require 72. It's aggressive. It's not in line with what a lot of other health experts believe. And you have a correlation between the massive increase in vaccine schedules to the massive increase of autism cases amongst that same time period. So you've got to be serious about investigating that correlation. Now, I would say they haven't swung the pendulum back in a crazy way and said, forget all medicine. I think this is a responsible way to do it. And oh, by the way, if you want to get them all, you still can. They're all going to be covered by insurance. But if you want to get your, kid into a school or this or that, based on the requirements, and what the doctor, some of these doctors, we won't treat you unless you've been vaccinated. Well, I don't think that all vaccines are wrong or bad. I think 72 is way too many. But I think, there have been some vaccines that have been good. And so we shouldn't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. And that's what they've been doing. 11 of the most serious. I think that's reasonable, and don't give them all at once. And I bet you see the numbers of autism and injuries and SIDS and everything else come way down. Another common sense thing. I mean, this is a huge deal. It's not really being talked about very much, but I think this is a big deal. Big deal for the health and future of our children and our country. I don't know that this kind of thing, after all that's been done, that it can be easily unwound either. Because there's been so much information and truth and education inserted into the minds of Americans, especially parents, especially mothers, in the last several years. And then you are justifying it through medical expert advice and evidence and making that the new standard. I think it's going to be hard to walk away from this or to increase it without huge pushback. Now, if we see a crazy outbreak of one of these things that's not vaccinated for, that might provide them the cover to propose an increase. But to me, this is a huge step in common sense healthcare, and it should be celebrated. I mean, they didn't even half it. They didn't say, okay, now only 35 jabs. No, 11. And I mean, if we go back to, let's see, vaccine schedule based on year. And if we go all the way back to however long, let's see. I would like to find out when was the last time, and this is hard to find because they don't post this kind of stuff. But when was the last time we had 11? So back in the 70s, you had diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, polio, and measles, mumps, and rubella, the MMR, with routine smallpox. So that's less than 10. So we're probably saying we're going back to like the 80s as far as vaccine schedule goes. Let's see here. Yeah, the 80s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 94. I mean, those are the things they were treating, not actual doses. But they just, I mean, now they want you to get a flu vaccine. They want you to get a rotavirus. I mean, a hepatitis vaccine. I don't know. And so we're going back in time, I would say close to the 80s, as far as turning back the clock on this just over the top vaccine scheduling, poking the crap out of these kids. Okay, big celebration there. Matt Gaetz. Bree says, I used to really like him. Definitely not too much of a fan now. It's interesting, right? What happened to that dude? He was supposed to be attorney general. And then, I mean, I'll just never forget this. The fact, something big's happening with Matt Gaetz. I think the big announcement was he was going to be attorney general, and then he was like, oops. A bunch of stuff's coming out about him. I think I don't even know why he ran for Congress again. I think obviously there was new information or new findings or new testimony, because it totally changed his strategy and how he was dealing with stuff. I don't know. I would love to get the actual honest behind the scenes story for Matt Gaetz on that. I doubt it's going to happen, but it's certainly none of those moves make any sense. Now, if he was the attorney general and he's like, well, I'm gonna, get confirmed before this report comes out and I'll be in a safe spot. Maybe that was the play. And then he moved too early or too late. I don't know, depending on which way you want to look at it. But I think the big announcement was they were going to announce that he was going to be, nominated for attorney general. And then all hell broke loose with that report coming out. And then he's like, okay, well, you don't have the support. You dropped out. I mean, the dude did run for reelection, won reelection, right? And then he just drops out. I mean, I'm just not okay with this. You run for a seat, you get it, you can complete it. And you go, well, wait a minute. Some of these nominees, okay, were for Trump's cabinet. They may have been serving in Congress. Okay. That would be an exception. But Matt Gaetz resigned his post. I mean, maybe it's required in some instances. You got to resign a post before you are able to be confirmed in the cabinet or something. But unless it's absolutely required, do not resign until you are in that next position, because we can't be leaving these seats open and then having to do these special elections again and again. And by the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene is gone. She's done. She's retired now that allegedly the pension is kicked in, and she has totally abandoned her freaking constituents, all while talking out of the other side of her mouth that she's doing this for the people. It's pathetic. I don't care what good you've done for this country or not. Marjorie Taylor Greene, that is pathetic to drop out and quit. You don't quit. You quit on your people. You let them down. You quit on your constituents because the heat got too hot. You didn't want to have to fight a freaking battle. I'm sorry. But this idea that work is supposed to be easy and life is supposed to be easy and a battle for what's good is supposed to be easy is freaking bollocks, man. And I'm not saying everything that Marjorie Taylor Greene was doing was righteous, but if you believe it's righteous, you believe in it, and you can justify that it's the right thing, just because there's resistance doesn't mean it's time to give up. That is not the example we need to set for our children. In fact, quite the opposite, because today, this day and age, the way people think is, oh, it's too hard. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do hard things. I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want to have to face adversity. I don't want to have to develop resilience in my soul. I want easy coasting. And the minute that it gets rough, the minute that someone says something you don't like, the minute that it becomes like you're pushing against the grain, this idea that therefore it's just not the place for you because it's too hard, I think is cowardly. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a coward. She's a coward. I would say that to her face. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Madam, Miss, Congresswoman, ex-Congresswoman, whatever you want to say your name is, when someone runs from the fight because it's too hard, that's called being a coward. How are you different? I don't see it any other way. I don't give a crap what President Trump says or doesn't say to you. I don't give a crap if you can't win re-election. I don't give a crap if people don't want to vote for you for governor of Georgia, or there's no viability for a Senate race for you. I don't give a crap about any of those things. You were elected to do a job, finish out your term, put on your big girl panties, and do the freaking job. That's what you were elected to do. You owe it to your constituents. And it's a horrible example to set to give up when it gets difficult. That is not the spirit of American exceptionalism. That is not the spirit of courage that built this free land on the blood and backs of those that were brave enough to stay in the fight even when it was tough. That is not what we want to emulate. I think people can do better. And I want to say that when the going gets tough, the tough get going. That's what they say. I think they said that during TGIF, probably in an episode of Family Matters or something. That's how I feel about it. This idea that when it gets tough, it's time to give up is a failures mentality. Let me tell you, if you work long enough and you're successful enough or get to whatever level again and again and again, whatever it is, you're going to encounter difficulty and resistance. Does that mean you throw the whole freaking journey and mission and purpose out the window because it's hard? No. You join the team, finish the season. That's what I tell my kids. Get in the middle of the season, oh, I want to quit. Whatever it is. I'm not giving specifics in case my kids are watching. And it was the same thing that was said to me when I was a kid. You join the team, you started the season, you'll end the season. You don't quit. You don't quit on your teammates, and you honor your commitment. Even if you are riding the bench the entire time and your coach is a freaking idiot. Whatever the scenario. It's too hard. There's too much exercise. You have to wake up too early. My feet hurt. My back hurts. I don't care. You cannot quit. This is what you signed up for. That's the message that we should be putting out there, not this idea that, oh, Donald Trump is, he's just so mean, and Mike Johnson doesn't like women, and therefore it's just time for me to get out. I'm rising above it all by quitting. Horse crap. I have no tolerance for it, as you can probably tell. Anyway, I think we need to get away from that mentality. We must promote, pursue, and push resilience. That is what makes for a stronger, better generation, not a bunch of weak snowflakes. Speaking of which, today's Triggered Liberal.
It's time for today's Triggered Liberal.
All right, look at this pink-headed special person. Melting down as a liberal over Venezuela with a post, imagine being a Venezuelan celebrating the liberation of your country after decades of communist oppression. And then clicking on social media to see some pink-haired American liberals screaming about how your oppressor should be put back in power. Again, always cheering for the bad guys, these uneducated or overly educated leftists.
Trump said the United States will be running Venezuela. Woo! A colony. Woo! Imperialism. All for so a multinational corporation can get profit. Woo!
Okay. Sorry, we had to do some language editing on the fly. For colonialism, imperialism, and so some corporation could get profit. Woo! Celebrating the liberation of your... I mean, imagine being Venezuelan and living under this oppression, knowing the truth about what's been going on there, and then some pink-haired freak gets on social media screaming, acting like it's ridiculous to celebrate the fact that this dictator's been removed because it's colonialism and it's imperialism and it's profits for the corporations. That's when I, as a Venezuelan, would look at Americans and say, what is wrong with them? But wait, Venezuelans, please don't judge us on the meltdowns of unhinged, triggered liberals.
It's time for today's Triggered Liberal.
All right, my friends, that's going to do it. If you want to see when we're on live again, make sure you set the notifications on our Rumble channel, rumble.com/The Ike Wingate Show, or on X at Ike Wingate. That is my handle on X. It is there on the bottom of your screen, okay? The bottom of your screen. You can follow me at Ike Wingate. Of course, if you want to contribute to help us cover our costs, you can do so via Cash App or Venmo at IkeReport.com. We have the links set up there. So it's a $5, $10, $20, $50 contribution, whatever it is. You can do so by clicking the link at IkeReport.com and using your Venmo or your Cash App account and give directly to help fund the show. And all we're asking is for help to keep our hard costs covered. I don't take any money from this show, never have, never will. And All we need to do is cover our costs. So if you want to help us with that, Cash App or Venmo, again, at IkeReport.com. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. We'll be back before you know it. Remember, we're always at least live a couple times a week and then replayed on the RSBN network. Okay? Have yourself a great day. God bless you. God bless America. And long live Charlie Kirk.
Rate, subscribe, and leave a review. It's how we get the word out amidst the chaos. Thanks for listening to The Ike Wingate Show.